Hey everybody, it's me Tara, and in this video I just want to quickly voice my main concern for the PlayStation 6 Handheld, PSP 3, or Vita 2, PlayStation Go, whatever, you get it. And yes, I'm in the corner. You're gonna have to stare at me kind of moving my mouth and upper body every time I talk. I basically just picked up with the pen, so bear with me. I even gave myself 4 whole frames, and I also have to completely redo this sometime because I lacked foresight. Anyways, so while I am excited for the PS6 handheld myself from a "wow, that's cool, now I can wait 2 years and buy a slightly cut back version from Valve and play my PC games" standpoint, and I don't intend this video to be a "I hate this thing, don't buy it" kind of thing, but rather, here's my main potential concern that may be alleviated, as at the end of the day, I'm not the one sitting in a room with Mark Cerny and a few AMD engineers yet. To keep this easily digestible, pretty much every mobile device on the market right now has the exact same bottleneck: memory bandwidth. Memory bandwidth is basically the speed of the connection between a processor and its memory pool. For a CPU, it surprisingly doesn't matter that much. As long as you're running dual channel memory and not running the bare minimum speed of your memory, you're pretty much a-okay. Any further gains, unless you are extremely memory bottlenecked, will be minimal at best. For a GPU, if you don't give it enough bandwidth, you're pretty much telling it to go fuck itself. The prime example is the Nintendo Switch 2. I do love my Nintendo Switch 2, and I appreciate how it's the first Nintendo console in years to finally not feel like a massive waste of silicon compared to other consoles. However, it has one major weakness that prevents it from utilizing its hardware to its full potential in certain games, and well, it's pretty obvious. I basically just spoiled it. It has a pitiful 102 gigabytes of memory bandwidth in docked and only 68 in handheld mode to split between not only the CPU and the CUDA cores, but also the tensor cores for DLSS and ray tracing. On top of that, LPDDR5X, which is what the Switch 2 uses, is inherently not as good as GDDR6 and GDDR7 for graphics. To be fair, Ampere, the architecture the Switch 2 uses for its GPU, has far higher effective memory bandwidth than what on paper specs would imply because of its memory compression tech. But that still isn't enough to allow the Switch 2 to use full DLSS in certain games unless the developer already put a lot of work into squeezing as much as possible out of very little memory bandwidth, like Cyberpunk 2077. Okay, so what does the Switch 2 have to do with the PS6 handheld? Well, I mean, I basically just explained it like at least 2 times. The PS6 handheld is going to use LPDDR5X memory from pretty much every leak available. Unless they spend a lot of money increasing the bus width, it may not even have 200 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. Now, the solution to this is something Mark Cerny himself discussed a while back. RDNA 5, which the PS6 and PS6 handheld will use, will have something called universal compression, which, to put it simply, increases effective memory bandwidth even further by compressing pretty much every possible thing in memory. Will this solve the issue entirely? On PS6, the console, yes, because it's already going to be working with 640 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth before universal compression. On the PS6 handheld, which will start at 160 gigabytes per second at best, well, theoretically this shouldn't be a problem because it's going to be using lower quality textures, it's not going to be doing as many things, it's most likely going to be running a lighter version of PSSR. Well, Sony is pushing hard for local AI in next-gen games, and wouldn't you know it, local AI is very heavy on memory bandwidth. Again, many Switch 2 games have required cutbacks or workarounds to be able to use DLSS. Hell, even the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth's graphics pipeline had to be pulled out and completely reconfigured to run on Switch 2. Not because the GPU couldn't handle it, but because there simply wasn't enough memory bandwidth to go around to both make the game look and run. And you may be thinking, well, Tara, PC handheld exists. Of course they do. And they also cost $1,000. In fact, let's put this into even more perspective. The Xbox Ally X, which is an Xbox, I guess, has 256 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth on a 256-bit bus, and that's still bottlenecking the rest of the system. There's a slim chance Sony is going to put a 160-bit bus on their big boy console and a bigger bus on the handheld just because the handheld needs it in the times we live in. Now, the one thing we do know is that the PS5 low power mode is effectively a sneak peek at what the PS6 handheld is going to target/beat. The one thing that matters most is that the memory speed is cut in half, leaving 224 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. If universal compression is good enough, going back to that 160 gigabytes per second 160 gigabytes per second bandwidth on paper guess, it would leave an effective 260-ish, leaving enough for a game, a light version of PSSR, and some other AI stuff that Sony may want to run. unless they can get it to times compression on everything for even more stuff, which is highly unlikely. Anyways, that's about it. I didn't want this to be too long, and again, I hope Sony is able to work some magic besides praying universal compression is enough, because if not, well, even with that 260GB guess, it's going to be pain and suffering getting PS6 games to run on the PS6 handheld. Not to mention all the PS5 games that might not play well with universal compression, unless they're banking on the Nintendo Switch 2's success, forcing developers to optimize their games for memory bandwidth efficiency, which is, well, that's kind of stupid. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and peace out.